When I was a kid, my parents really loved the way the American government operates, as well as how many Western governments are around the world. Because here we had communism, and the idea of a government that isn't involved in your personal life to a huge extent, that doesn't have to listen to your phone calls, that doesn't have to go through your mail, that isn't really that interested in what you do. That was unthinkable here because we benefited from the Soviet Union. We had rationing for everything. People weren't really able to travel that much, and you were pretty much at the mercy of the government. And they knew everything there was to know about you. Like they would have a big folder, and there was the case that children would often rat on their parents. The wife would rat on their husband, and vice versa. So people lived in fear. They lived worried that any day they could say a joke or something improperly, and they could lose their job or worse, end up in prison. But now that the Iron Curtain fell and the Romanian government is more in line with Western democracies, it is very sad to notice that because of climate change, the solution is to create a new Soviet Union, or at least in spirit, where the government is very concerned what you do. The government is very interested what you have to say. You go online, and all of these social media platforms are harvesting your data, your personal information, and on top of that, there's things like the online safety bill in the UK. The European Union has one as well, where they want to end encryption so that every time you have a private message with someone else, the government can see it, the corporations can see it. Complete removal of privacy. But besides that, it's a downgrade of living conditions, of the living standard. They're not even ashamed to say that people have to live poorer than they are now. That their goal is to actually impoverish people. And what's even more shocking is that many individuals are fine with this. And one of the worst things that they do is to restrict travel. What I noticed that here in Romania, a lot of people are very pro European Union. Like they really love it. And if you ask them, it's like, okay, but like what did the EU do for you, or why do you like it so much? Usually they will say something like open borders. It's because if I want to travel to France, I can just go to France, I pick up a flight, and I'm there. And apparently that may not be a thing anymore because they are planning to support a new legislation that's going to make cheap, low-cost flights very difficult. Now, take into account that usually these types of legislations, they begin with something small, is the small ask. So here they talk about, oh, well, we're going to make sure that €10 flights aren't a thing anymore. And that's how it starts, right? Because once it starts, after 1 year, they can make that €20 flights aren't available. Then they can raise it up to 40, then to 80, so on and so forth. Like once you put something like this in place, it allows the politician to then just tinker with the cost. So what I find very interesting about it is that while climate change is allegedly affecting all of us, for some reason the burden is to be shared by the little guy. Time and time again, this seems to be a trend. For example, why are private jets not illegal yet? Like, legit question, why does anyone need a private jet? Can I get an answer to this? And this is something that I keep asking environmentalists, and up to this day, I haven't found an answer. So, like, basically, if traveling by plane is polluting, okay, why do we allow private jets? I mean, can they not fly commercial? Must they be a private jet? I just genuinely want an explanation for this. Like, what is the reason? Especially in the age where you have Zoom calls, like as we saw during the pandemic. You can have a child and he can learn from a Zoom call without going to school. So why can't world leaders who join COP20 or they go to the European Union, why can't they also use online methods in order to communicate with each other? Why is it always that is the little guy that has to suffer? And it's small things like this, but like the purpose is obvious, to restrict travel. become a peasant again, like in the medieval age here in Europe. In many places, peasants weren't allowed to travel, even if they did have the means, without permission from the noble. So apparently, like, France seeks support from other EU nations in order to put a minimum price on flights in an effort to cut the aviation sector's carbon emissions. I just want to point out that the aviation industry is already struggling after they closed them down with COVID. So now that they're literally thinking on how to fuck them even further. And a lot of people are upset. Like right now, if you want to take a plane, at least in Europe, I don't know how it's in the United States, but they have like all these small taxes, and my god, do they add up? And they didn't used to have them as high as they are now. But like basically, you have like the already usual taxes. Like if you want an extra bag, it costs more. If you, for example, want to select your seat, it costs more. So like at the end of the day, if you actually like take all the extra stuff that used to be free, you end up paying around like 50% extra compared to what your initial price was. It's ridiculous, and I'm not blaming the aviation industry for this. Like they are just trying to survive after the governments keep fucking them up. So apparently earlier this year, Bune first proposed the idea in getting rid of super cheap fares. It's interesting, right? Because like when I grew up, politicians were trying to figure out how to make things to be super cheap. Now they're thinking how can we get rid of the super cheap so we make everything super expensive. So frequent flyers are disproportionately responsible for emissions. Notice how it's never like people with yachts that are responsible for emissions, right? It's never politicians that fly jets. No. It's people like you and me. If you want to have a vacation, you best pay more. So anything that makes airlines pay a fair share of the environmental cost, oh, fuck off. Yeah, I really hate the concept of fair share, right? Like, how much do you pay, Mr. Politician? Because I'm willing to bet, I don't even know this politician, but I'm willing to bet if I look into him, he probably has far more expenses than my entire family put together. Does he pay his fair share? Probably not. I'm paying my taxes. I'm paying my fair share of taxes, so he can do that, right? Very upsetting. So apparently we should deal with frequent flyers, and this does not deal with them. It might reduce nice city weekends for some people, but it's not going to stop or reduce the regular flying elite. In France, 2% of people take half of all flights, according to research published by blah blah blah. Yeah, but like, again, usually traveling like this, going to visit another country, yeah, it's not a lot of people that do it, but it's a significant income for the airplane industry. And if you mess with that, then you risk causing airplane companies to go out of a business. And probably this is what they're after, right? It is what it is. Let me know what you guys think, and as usual, I will see you in the comment section. Take care.